Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to the second day of the 53rd running of the ADAC Ravenol 24 hours of the Nürburgring. The weather gods are smiling on us again, set fair for a beautiful afternoon and evening before we get into race day tomorrow. We had a very exciting sessions yesterday that has given us some idea of the pace of this circuit. The further forecast is pretty much exactly what we have right now. Clear blue skies, temperatures in the mid-20s Celsius and rising to 29 today, 31 tomorrow. Overnight tonight is the summer solstice just after 4 o'clock in the morning, so tonight is the shortest night. And tomorrow we'll have a little under 8 hours between sundown and sunup, making this the shortest night in a Nürburgring 24 hours for a very, very long time. Officially, right now, the temperature is 19 Celsius. Feels a little warmer than that out of the wind, but that's keeping things very pleasant. My name's John Hindhoff. Alongside me, just to my right, in the Global Broadcast Centre, overlooking the start-finish stripe, is Johnny Palmer for this session, which has an odd number of cars, literally, as well as metaphorically, because there are 17 of them in what is called top qualifying. This is the pole shootout by any other name, JP. Why 17?
Yeah, it's a peculiar question, isn't it? And I've been scratching my head a little bit throughout the course of the week. It's stipulated in the regulations that it's a certain percentage of the SP9s that are entered into the race. That's 27 for this year. We are a little bit down on numbers, I suppose you could say, because there are big clashes with other huge events around the motorsport world, including the sailing 6 hours of the Glen in the States. Still, there's great strength in depth, and what it means is that there were 5 places up for grabs at the end of qualifying 2 last night. Combined session, so Q1 bolted onto Q2 as if it's one long session. But the nice little thing about Q2 was the first 15 minutes, when we started at 8 o'clock yesterday evening, the first 15 minutes was just for those GT3/SP9 cars that weren't already into top qualifying. So they had the track to themselves, and there were 15 cars that were trying to get those crucial top 5 positions. And Ben Constanduris, Joe Bradley and I had kind of had a chat before we started that session saying, isn't it all going to be about this first 15 minutes and basically one lap? Because once you've done an out lap, you're only going to have a chance to do another 25 and a bit kilometres, and by that point the track's going to start to get very populated with all the other categories.
And indeed, Chris Haase set the best time, I think, on his first flying lap in the defending champions of this race, the #1 Audi. But we had to wait right till the other end of that 3 hour session, 3.5 hour session, to get another fast lap, and it was a lap of some legend, to be honest. Not the fastest lap, good enough for third position on the timing and scoring, and it was the Porsche, the number 16 car, that wasn't in, and that was the real car that was missing out of that for Share Sport. And Lawrence Vanthoor was bolted into that car. It had been out, and it looked like it was going to go for a lap, but then it got a puncture and limped back. And we were hoping against hope it wasn't the same drive shaft problem they'd had earlier on. They bolted Vanthoor in. He went out. He had one lap to do it. And my goodness me, he timed it perfectly. I know you guys were watching back at the accommodation. Peter Mackay and I barely able to take a breath on the lap. The director gave us as much as he could of the onboard of that, and it was brilliant stuff. And that car then in for Share Sport. Now, 17 cars. We weren't sure whether we were going to get the number 11 SRO Motorsport by Schnitzelau Mercedes in, but J-Mo Hertling will be in that car. Their fastest lap was disqualified, and they will start, regardless of what they do here, according to the message we had last night, they will start at the back of the lead group. So I'm not really certain why these guys are in here, but let's stay with what we've got in front of us. Walter Hornung live on the stream this morning, our race director, a bit like the third round of the FA Cup, as Johnny was mentioning earlier, drew lots to see who went first. And going first is the Valkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage of Nicky Team.
That, for me, is fascinating because...
Except it's not.
Well, are the cars in a long line yet?
We've got a car out.
Well, the Audi's moving around. I didn't think it had been waved off yet because the Audi is supposed to leave the grid 6th with Marcus Winkelhock at the wheel. So I think this is an outlap from the pit lane, and they'll now come round and start to be lined up on the main straight. The first car isn't
that was pit, so that was a countdown to pit open.
The first car isn't waved off until 1:30.
Oh, there we go. So we've got a little more time.
Yeah.
So earlier on, the lots were drawn, the balls came out of the bag or whatever.
But yeah, so we got 5 cars that entered the session last night.
Yeah.
As you've said, quickest car was the Audi of Chris Haase. Second fastest was the Lamborghini number 28 out at Sportsline. Marco Mappelli did the time in that. Then there was another Lamborghini, the number 27. The 16 Porsche leaving it late, that qualified third. But the 5th qualifying car, I remember there was about a 10th between those two Aston Martins. So it squeaked into the top 5. And I was waiting to see what number it was going to get, and the number 1 wasn't appearing. And I thought, have they actually remembered to put a number 1 in any of these envelopes? And finally, 34 Trinity Solutions, brackets Valkenhorst. Where's that going to start? The very front.
Right.
So it's the last car to have qualified, and now it's going to be the first car to be waved off, with Nicky Team doing the qualifying.
This is a little bit earlier than it has been in the past. It's normally further through the afternoon's events. This is effectively the big one here on Friday afternoon. And good afternoon to those of you joining us, or good morning, good evening, wherever you are around the world. This is, I mean, it's not by the sun high noon, but it's hot. The temperature on the track is hot. This is not what we saw last night. We're not going to get the 8-minute 10 that we saw from Chris Haase yesterday evening, I don't think. The track's in pretty good condition. There's been some cars out there. The other thing that's different from what you've seen so far, if you have been following along, this is the first time that there's no cones on the front straight. So you now can enter the pits directly off the end of the North Loop. And you can still come round the back and come in through the Grand Prix circuit into the pit lane if you so desire. But that will take one of your laps away. You are allowed 2 flying laps. So a warm-up lap and 2 flying laps. I suppose you could just come around through the pits, but that wouldn't be a quick lap, would it? So cars coming round to the pits now, out of the pits now. One of the things we noticed, JP, is there's been an interesting choice of qualifying drivers.
Yes, because...
You pulled your face there a little bit. It almost looked like it was slightly in pain.
I kind of was, because before the sheet was issued with the drivers that are going to do top qualifying, I thought, oh, let's try and guess and work out who I would put in the cars, right?
I think I would have got about a third of them.
I think I would have probably got about a third, or maybe even a quarter of them. It was a toss-up for me between, in the 34 Aston Martin, which will be the first car off, Mattia Drudi off the back of a Le Mans pole, and Nicky Team. Because with the respect of Christian Krognes, the thing is, Christian's driving 2 cars this weekend.
Yeah.
He's also in the number 35 car from the same team, Trinity Solutions. That's a Pro-Am car, so actually Christian's the quickest driver in that. So as soon as you put the Christian in the Pro-Am, who then is left over in the 34, say left over. Nicky Team, Mattia Drudi, that's an embarrassment of riches. They've gone with the Dane. Yeah. Then I looked at the 33 Volker Motorsports Porsche. Julian Andlauer stands out because he's been rapid the last couple of days, but it's Nico Menzel that goes in that car.
I'd have got that one wrong. No disrespect to Nico. I'd have put Andlauer in that car.
But then you think, recent Nürburgring Nordschleife specialist, perhaps Nico is the better bet.
I'd have still put Julian Andlauer in that
maybe.
car.
Okay. The 30 car, the 30 Trinity Solutions, that is an all-am lineup. It's an all-bronze lineup, so it might have been Henry Valkenhorst. They've elected to put Stefan Aust in that car. Fine.
As you see, a permanently 1 from 3 there. Yep, absolutely.
45 realised Condo Racing with Ravenol, the only Ferrari in the whole of the race. David Perel of South Africa. You've got Felipe Fernandez-Laza, who was in the Ferrari 2 years ago for
That's who I would have put in. Felipe Fernandez.
Axel Jeffries, good driver. But then I thought, Thomas Neubauer, he's often got some very good laps around here. So I was thinking, yeah, Fernandez-Laza or Neubauer. They've gone with the Frenchman.
Okay.
Lamborghini, which was the 4th fastest car last night after the 2 qualifying sessions. Lamborghini number 27, which is the Red Bull apt car. Jordan Pepper did last night's time, so I thought, well, he's got a fair shout. But Mirko Bortolotti also, and Danny Juncadella. I mean, to be honest, it could be any of those 3.
I think I'd have put Juncadella in.
Fine. Well, it's Bortolotti, who's the Lambo specialist, I suppose.
So I wouldn't have been doing well so far.
No. Then the number 1 Audi, Chris Haase, wasted no time at all last night. He did an outlap and then the fastest lap of anybody.
Yeah, so it's Chris Haase in the number 1.
All day long.
Yeah.
No, Marcus Winkelhock. Okay, so that's another one we got wrong.
No disrespect to anybody who's going out there. We're just sort of saying it was a topic of conversation.
Certainly, yeah. Certainly, yeah.
And who's next? That was the Jutta R8 is next.
The 8 Jutta Racing Audi, which is a Pro-Am car. That did initially have Frank Stippler in it, but he's going to concentrate on Ford Mustangs instead. So they've taken Stippler out, put Pierre Caffer in.
So Pierre Caffer's qualified.
You would have thought so. Yeah. But actually, it's Alexei Veremenko, who is one of the non-pro drivers. And I kind of understand that because...
the builds.
Exactly. Yeah. There'll be a fair bit of...
and how many times do you get to do... it's a full tank lap. It has to be mandated, but with fresh tyres and hardly anybody else on the Nordschleife. What an experience for that. I understand that one.
Yeah. The other thing I should mention is fresh tyres, yes, but they're all going to be on full tanks of fuel. So you can burn off a little bit on the installation lap, and then that's a question as to how much does the second lap improve. The tyre performance drops, but the car becomes lighter, and considerably lighter because you've done nearly 26 kilometres. Next up is the 35 Trinity Solutions Aston Pro-Am. As we've established, the quickest driver in there, Christian Krognes, so the Norwegian gets his seat. 48 was always going to be interesting. This is the Porsche from Black Falcon Team EAE. Interesting, first of all, as to whether they were going to get the car fixed, because Mustafa Mehmet Kaya had his incident at Metzgersfeld last night and ended up underneath the tyre barrier. Took a long time to get that car towed out from the tyres, on the flatbed, back with the team. And I caught a glimpse of that car during qualifying 2, and there was so much work going on that car, lots of body panels off, but it is on the grid, I'm told, so they might have had a bit of a late night finish. But number 48 in Pro-Am, which is one of the Intercontinental GT Challenge entries as well. Do you put Gabriele Piana in that, who's had a great result probably about 10 years ago in the 24-hour race? Or one of the up-and-coming drivers, and they've elected for the Dutchman Dan Arrow to put him in the car.
A great driver name, that is, Dan
It's
Arrow.
Brilliant. Yeah, but it's not actually his real name.
It's like Max Revs.
His real name means arrow in Dutch, but sounds more like... And none of us English speakers have a real difficulty in saying it. It's spelled P-I-J-L.
Okay.
Pale. Pale, which means arrow.
Okay.
So I can understand. Yeah, it's making it a lot easier for us.
There we go. 1 minute. Rattle through the others then.
So then the 16 car, very last minute last night. The time was done by Lawrence Vantor. He's going to do top qualifying. Yeah. 28 at Lamborghini. Marco Mappelli was quickest last night, but they put Luca Enxler in the car.
Okay.
17 Mercedes, all 3 Mercedes were already pre-qualified. Adam Christodoulou is going to do the time in that. He's the Nordschleife specialist after all. We've got the number 44 Falcon Motorsports Porsche. I was kind of looking forward to Dorian Boccolacci doing a time, but we're going to see Maurice Schuring, who was a Le Mans winner last year with Manthey, but he's driving for Falcon Motorsports in this event. Speaking of Manthey, the 911 Grello all the way down in 14th position to be waved off from there, but Kevin Estre will drive it, perhaps unsurprisingly. Maro Engel has had something like 4 Glickenhaus trophies in the past, so he's in for I think it will be a 5th. I'll check that. Jamo Hartling you've mentioned. No, that's a Pro-Am Mercedes number 11 from SR Motorsport Schnitzelarm. They'll have to start from the back of the grid anyway, but Jamo Hartling will do the time. And Yusuf Ovega in the only Ford Mustang to make it into top qualifying. 3 Mustangs making their debut at the Nürburgring 24 hours.
Okay, so Nicky Team is off and running in the Falcon Horse Aston Martin Vantage. as is Nico Menzel for Falcon and their Porsche.
The other thing to remind everybody about is that since the qualifying races, the 34 Aston that Nicky Team drives has switched tyre manufacturers. Used to be on Pirellis, it's even on our list as Pirellis, but they're now on Michelins.
All right, can you make a change on that, please?
Yeah, I'll try.
Right, just put a big M on there.
I'll cross the P out.
And then we'll know.
Indeed.
Right, thank you. I actually have got an updated version of that, which I could probably
Have
get.
you?
Yeah, I could probably. And
Keeping that for yourself?
it's on my phone.
Okay.
So only this one pole shootout for top qualifying. The 5 transferees, 5 transfer spots were in the combined times from yesterday. So the top 5 qualifiers who weren't already qualified then go forward. You follow me here?
Just about.
Yeah, I'm confused myself now. I'm going to stop talking about it and just concentrate on the cars that are actually out there. Green flag further back down the grid for the number 8, Alexei Varamenko. Christian Kronius for Aston Martin Vanquish. Ready to go.
Now, news from Davey Avema of Sportscar 365. I had wondered whether this might be a rule, but then I couldn't understand why Vantor was allowed to drive.
Yeah.
In that first 15 minutes of last night's qualifying too, 8 o'clock till 8:15, if any car set a fast time, their fastest time within that 15-minute segment, you have to change your driver.
Right.
So Chris Haas's not eligible, therefore, to do this bit. But Vantor's the difference, because Vantor led set it in the normal bit of the session.
And he wasn't out there anyway at the start, I don't think.
Thank you, Davey. He's got so many answers for me this weekend.
Oh, we've got a problem for the Falcon. They've got a right rear puncture on that car, the number 33 car. Second off, Nico Menzel. We've seen this a few times. How many's that now? That's at least 3 right rear punctures that we've seen on the Falcon Porsches. One of them was a drive shaft problem as well.
Not on the Falcon, that was...
No, that was another Porsche,
That was
That was the sharer car.
16, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, my apologies, mixing up Porsches there.
Was that 33 Porsche still on the Grand Prix circuit?
Yes, it was.
So it can get into pit lane.
But you can't change your tyres, can you? I suppose you could put another set of tyres.
Well, is there a rule to say if one's punctured, then surely you might be able to? You would burn one of your laps, but, you know, what option have you got at this stage?
You only have one flying lap at that point.
You have to, yeah. Because it's done about how many times you cross the line. Yeah, the 33's in the pits. You can see it from our vantage point. So
you know what? That right rear looks like it's still got air in it. As off goes J-Mo Hertling. No, sorry, that was Maro Engel in the Get Speed car. J-Mo still to go in the SRO Motorsport by Schnitzelam. This car, whether it gets on pole position or not, I'll tell you now exactly where it's starting at the end of the lead group. So, yeah, new tyres for the Falcon machine. And they're having a good look. I mean, how's your look if you can't even get round onto the Nürburgring Nordschleife? Ford Mustang is back on the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And they are aiming to take the Glickenhaus trophy for pole position. Jim Glickenhaus, what an enthusiast for this race and for racing in general. Now, this does mean that the Falcon number 33 is going to be right at the back.
yeah.
So what happened? Oh, it was a right front, and it's
Not rotating.
It's jammed solid. I can see the smoke coming from it. He's lucky not to have clipped the wall there. So the whole right front, that's a stuck wheel. So that's either a brake issue.
I'm not sure they're going to be able to get that fixed, because if it's done some damage to the suspension as well, or the brakes, it's not just a question of taking the damaged tyre off and putting a new one on.
Well, it's still up on the jacks at the moment.
They're looking around. They've got a bit of time here, I suppose, because, as we've mentioned, they've burned one of their laps. It's all down to a single qualifying lap then for Nico Menzel now.
So it's Nicky Team who's the first car, and they seem to be taking it relatively easy on their outlap, I would suggest. That's got to do with the temperature. Stefan Aust in the multicoloured Aston. The multicoloured Astons is sort of like a TV test card with cartoon children on them. Listen to the rumble of that V8 through the Caracciolo carousel. So called because there used to be a drainage ditch that ran around the inside, and Caracciolo, by legend, was the first one that realised rally driver style. We would call that ditch hooking. They could get it through there, and eventually it bore his name. Oh, glorious sound of the burbling Aston. Well, they've got the 33 running at some distance off the back of the rest of the pack. So without having to go offline, without having to let a whole load of people back, that will be the last car on the track, but with only one flying lap. Now, we've got traffic, believe it or not. Just let me finish the thought as well, because I started something and I didn't finish it. I apologise for that. The Aston, the multicoloured Aston, they are running in the colours of the RTL television marathon, broadcast marathon. Basically, it's like a telethon for raising money for good causes and for children's charities. So we wish them all the best in that, and also say hello to our colleagues who were near neighbours of us at Le Mans in the TV compound from Nitro. They are doing their broadcast from within the Porsche lounge.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, for Porsche fans, it's not been the best start to this session with the 33 car having to dive in the pit lane, but there are a number of bullets in the Porsche gun, if you like.
So. 5
in this session, and Porsche have not taken a pole position, the Glickenhaus Trophy, since 2018, when Kevin Estre did an 8:09.105. That's not quite the quickest time that we've had in recent years. Raffaele Marciello 2 years ago, an 8:09.0. And you'd think, oh, that was in a BMW. Well, no, he was driving for Mercedes just 2 years ago in the Bilstein car.
Although being at the front of the grid has not necessarily been the place to be in terms of the finishing.
No, that's true. You'd almost want to give up pole position for the record that stands in terms of the last time a pole car. 2016. 2016 says.
And that was the last
over my shoulder.
That was the last time a AMG won as well.
Okay. Well, that was one of many Maro Engel pole position times, actually in the 8:14s.
Yeah.
We've had a 10-minute lap, so 2021 was wet for Nick Yellerly in the BMW, but otherwise they're all 8 minutes, and a number of 8:09s as well.
McLaren went very, very quickly here.
Yeah, that was 14, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get down to writing that one, but I've done the last 10 years.
Third position has been a good starting spot recently. I think is it the last two or the last three? Last two have been won from third position.
To answer your question about traffic, that was just Thomas Neubauer getting past the bronze-rated Stefan Aust.
Right.
I wonder whether they had a discussion actually beforehand to say,
might have.
is it better for both of us if I just clear you, having started from third and fourth respectively?
So here is the number 34 going through the first part of the Grand Prix circuit with Nicky Team on board. Starts to drop down the hill. Remember, on full tanks, and a decent crowd already. I mean, the campsites are absolutely chocker. This is the one we're calling the Cool Runnings Aston, isn't it? I saw this the other night and immediately thought of the Cool Runnings bobsleigh. You get the low shot at the front of it, you'll see why. So Nicky Team has set the fastest time in Sector 1, being as he is the first through at pace. Two cars very close together going through there was Nico Menzel and Thomas Neubauer. Neubauer in the sole Ferrari in the race. Only one BMW in the race as well, the Rover racing car. Because of the congestion of the fixtures, they basically ran out of drivers. I had a few people taking issue with me about that when I said that at the end of Le Mans and the start of this week in Midweek Motorsport. And there was a statement from the team manager that last night that basically said, well, we ran out of drivers, really. I don't make this stuff up, you know.
It's nice for BMW to put it in real terms. I mean,
Yes.
you can start thinking about a
spin it
political
anywhere you want.
answer.
Yes, exactly.
But no one could be in several places at once, and the calendar organisation is out of the control of the manufacturers a lot of the time. So it's just one of those years. I don't think this race can run any later in the year than the third weekend of June. It would never stretch into July.
It's always on a bank holiday weekend, and what the French, and I think the Germans call it a bridge weekend as well, the Brücke. The Thursday is a holy day, what we would call in the UK a bank holiday. And the two Thursdays are linked to Easter because they are religious holidays. And it's either Corpus Christi, which was this Thursday that we've just had,
yesterday,
or the earlier one is Ascension Day. And therefore, you can have that 4-day weekend just using a single day's holiday on the Friday. And that has been an absolute staple of this event. What I'd also say in the event of the ADAC's defence is they put their calendars out 4 or 5 years at a time. So we've just had all the dates for the next 5 years of the Nürburgring N24. So there's no excuse for people not knowing it. Also coming this week, we did have the fax machine set up for this. The Formula One calendars come through for next year, and I note that Spa and Formula One, which had taken the CrowdStrike Spa 24 weekend date, which therefore bumped that to next weekend this year, that has moved back into later in July. So there's a potential for that CrowdStrike Spa 24 to go back somewhere nearer to its original date in early, either later in June or in early July. We'll find that out next Friday in the press conference at the CrowdStrike 24 Hours. It seems bizarre to me, Johnny, having been involved in... I'm delighted by it, but it seems bizarre to me, having been involved in sports cars for nearly 40 years, that we are now worried about congestion of major events which have got, 100 and odd cars as it is here, 76 cars at Spa, 62 cars at Le Mans, this weekend at the Sirlands, 6 hours of the Glen with the Michelin Pilot Challenge and IMSA WeatherTech there. It wasn't that long ago when we were counting the days to the next Le Mans, and that would be the next big sports car race.
Yeah.
I love it, but it provides logistical problems because there are only so many weekends in the year. Now, that said, I've got 2 weekends off in July. Where I'm not doing sports car races, and I've got 2 weekends off in August where I'm not doing sports car races. I've filled the July ones, but I've not yet filled both of the August ones, although one of those is the first weekend of the Premiership season in the UK, so I may find myself in a seat at the Stadium of Light, I think, for that.
This being the 53rd edition of the ADAC Ravenol 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, this is just getting more and more exposure, this race, year after year after year. So it's one that so many drivers want to be at, I'm sure. But if they're contractually obliged to be somewhere else... Oh, big off for the number 16 Porsche, which is the one that sneaked in last night, remember? And it's Laurens Vanthoor who's gone off at Arenberg. And that's the direction of travel is just before the bridge. He's gone straight on at Arenberg, and there's an awful lot of damage to the front of that Porsche. So obvious concern for Laurens Vanthoor, and it means that anyone now heading through Schwedenkreuz and into Arenberg in the next few moments is going to have to back well and truly off. Mirko Bortolotti has already gone through those segments and gone purple through 3 of them. And a point that Peter Mackay has been making through the course of this weekend is that the Lamborghini Huracan has been very, very strong on the Grand Prix track. And no surprise, perhaps, then to see purple times through those first 2 splits, which are the Grand Prix track.
That car is very, very severely damaged. Now, he's lost that coming in all the way to the edge. Did he put a tyre on the grass there? My goodness, it nearly got airborne, and he's hit the unprotected part. In fact, there's no barrier protection there. I think He hit the inside curb. Yeah, hit the inside curb, and he's a passenger. Then he gets airborne, so he's goes across the gravel trap without actually hitting it, and into the catch fencing. That car is seriously damaged. That car is extremely seriously damaged.
Was Lawrence already out of the car and talking to marshals? They were gathered around the tyre wall as if he was out and sort of slumped against the tyre wall as they were checking him out. But I just want to be sure that Vantor's
will get
not necessarily okay straight away, because it's always difficult to tell that, but just as long as he's out.
In the meantime, Mirko Bortolotti in the number 27 Red Bull Team Apts Lamborghini GT3 Evo 2, the man that was fifth away, is absolutely flying. There's a smattering of fastest laps or fastest sector times for everybody at the moment, but Bortolotti, as Nicky Team comes to, Bortolotti's doing the best, Nicky Team comes to the end of the Dottinger Her for effectively his first competitive lap. Red flag. I don't think there was any choice there. I honestly do not think there was any choice. The burble of that Aston Martin is incredible. Now, the only thing that I would say about the damage to that car is that it's on the passenger side that the major damage is, but I'm pretty certain that in the trees there, I could see...
He's sitting on the wall, the helmet's off, there's two paramedics in front of him, so they're talking, and he's just gathering his thoughts. So that's the best news. You can fix race cars.
That's
I'm not saying it's going to be fixed in time for the race, but I just want the driver to be okay. And he's clearly very, very shocked and winded, and
he's actually sitting on a bit of arm core that the car damaged and has flattened down.
So it's formed a seat.
So it's formed a seat for him.
Well, that's very convenient, isn't it?
I mean, wow.
Yeah, he was out walking normally, so I guess he's okay.
Yes, he's okay. We've just heard from the team there in the background. He's walking away, helmet in hand, not even limping, and takes a glance over his right shoulder at what I will say is the remains of his car. Every single corner on that car is damaged.
Yeah.
The left rear particularly. Now, I think he was in trouble the moment he hit the inside curb of Schwedenkreuz, and that pushed him wide. He was then on the grass, which is very dry and dusty, but it was being launched over the curbs that then gave him the trouble, and he's up over the top of the Armco into the catch fencing, which does its job absolutely correctly. So inside curb, there's the touch on the inside curb for Sally, and just at that point Lawrence is a passenger, and it's already starting to go very badly wrong.
That inside curb at Arenberg is very steep as well, so it's dropped off the edge of that. And
I think the touch of Schwedenkreuz on the inside. And by the way, I take back what I said last night. The loop on their Y from Sally is actually a Porsche Y, so that is all Porsche lettering on that car. The best news: Lawrence Vantor is out of the car, and he'll be wondering. Well, I wonder. No, actually, he'll know. He'll know. He hit that curb hard enough that he'll know. But there is the absolute illustration, Johnny Palmer, of why we say that round here is a game of, well, not a game at all, actually, where a difference of inches, millimetres sometimes, can have absolutely incredible consequences that far outweigh I mean, what was he? Not even half a tyre over that curve.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Not even half.
We know how well he knows this place.
Yeah,
because look at that lap he did last night in complete darkness. So all of that is muscle memory, but it shows how hard he's having to push in an attempt to get pole position, a front row start, a front two-row start, let's say. And he knew how valuable that initial lap was in terms of the tyres being brand new. Yes, the car was heavy with fuel, But if you don't do it on the first lap, you're very unlikely to go quicker on the second lap, and that's how hard he was pushing. I actually think the nose of that Porsche, as it hit the Armco, went underneath the metalwork, and that's why the front is so compressed now. Get another chance to
the
describe it to you.
Is important. He comes over the brow, turns in all the way from the right, and then just clips. I mean, turned in a fraction early, and from that point he was chasing the car. I mean that is how little margin for error there is, and that is a huge commitment corner. And then as soon as he's on the dirt, he's literally a passenger.
Yeah, it's gone underneath the Armco, and the catch fencing or the debris fencing has done a good job in
really
retaining the car as well within the confines of the circuit. But I dread to think the amount of damage that has been done to the front of the car.
My worry there is that the right front A-pillar has taken damage. 270 kilometres an hour through over the top of that brow and into the left-hander of Schwedenkreuz, the Swedish cross. That is a huge commitment corner, and there will be very few people here who have been on any of the sims or the platform games who haven't had that accident where you just mistime your turn in there and either turn in a bit late and understeer out onto the grass, or turn in a tiny bit early and clobber the curb, and at that point there is no coming back. It doesn't matter how quick you get on the brakes, you're not coming back from that.
You've got to be that quick through Schwedenkreuz to make sure that your run out of Arenberg is sufficient into the foxhole.
It's
one corner leads into the next to the next.
It's because it's so quick, Johnny. You're coming up over the top of that brow, and there's so much time to be lost there. There's not much time to be gained because it is such a big commitment corner, and the pros are going through there, as Peter's just mentioned to us there on our text, at 270 kilometres an hour, and you know you can't take it easy through that.
A few years ago in the race, it was either Earl Bamber or Matt Campbell actually lost it coming out of Schwedenkreuz, and went all the way down the right-hand barrier in the race on the grass, still got it stopped in time. Might have taken a bit of gravel at Arenberg, but carried on. The problem is the lose has come much earlier in the corner. Car's already rotating, and from that point, as soon as the rear overtakes the front, Laurens Vanthoor is a complete passenger.
Here's something else as well. That's one of the resurfaced parts of the circuit, because there used to be a change in surface just after you came out of that right-hander, which you had to be a little bit more careful that you didn't upset the car as you were coming through that. Now I think it's a bit smoother, quite a lot smoother, and it's resurfaced all the way down through the foxhole as well.
And whereas at Brunchen the top layer of asphalt has actually risen, so that it means that the curbs stay the same at Brunchen, but the track's slightly higher, so it's made the curb a bit flatter. I don't know whether at Schwedenkreuz it's now a deeper curb, and he's thought, I can take a bit of it. Well, I mean, you know, how many times has he been around here? But it does change from year to year, from NLS meeting to NLS meeting, and in the dark I would have thought he would have been staying off the curb. Also, the traffic was forcing him into certain areas he didn't want to be.
I'm going to throw something in here as well. The onboard glitched just at the point, or actually even possibly before the point he hit the curb. So did something break before that? And that was the glitch on the camera as the bottom of the car hit the ground, or something snapped and sent a shockwave through the car. Because it's so difficult to see and say after the event whether some of that suspension damage was cause or effect. We think it's all effect. Right rear was damaged. So hard to say. I mean, that is the car with the drive shaft problems earlier in the week, and I know that did significant damage to the engine as well. Really?
So whether that got a new engine or not, I'm not sure, but it did do. You know, obviously, as a drive shaft breaks, then where it is connected to the block can start to rip things apart as well. So how much work has been done? You could argue lots of new bits have been put on that Porsche, so they shouldn't be breaking. However, they've had to be changed in a hurry. So It's very difficult to. I mean, you know, Lawrence Vantor might not even know what precisely has happened there.
And just underlining how big this track is, we've still got cars coming into the pit lane. So Adam Christodoulou, and one of the final cars to come back into the pit lane. JG, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for all your messages and submissions to us here in the Global Broadcast Centre. Hashtag RSL19N24, because it is our 19th Nürburgring 24. Put this on a t-shirt, by the way, for this place. We ask them to go to the limit. Sometimes the limit wins. Wow. I'm not sure there's anything else for me to add after that. So now we wait. And the question will be, do we reset this and start again, or does everybody start from a single lap? And in that case, does that help the Falcon Motorsports number 33, who'd effectively lost a lap?
Yeah. If everybody now only gets one lap, that will certainly help. I mean, it's a very tight schedule here today, and it depends how long the stoppage is going to be. This session was due to finish at 2:30, which is 34 minutes away, and the next action will be at 3:15 for another race, one of the support races on the Grand Prix circuit. So how far do you push things later in the day, bearing in mind that the 24-hour cars are going to have to do their third and final qualifying session at 4:15.
So that's for everybody from 17th on down, is it?
It is, yes. So you still get a chance, if you have not made it into top qualifying, to improve your position from 18th to 27th in SP9s. Also getting word that Adam Christodoulou in his Mercedes has been pinged for a pit lane speed limit breach, and therefore his fastest lap time will be lost.
Wow.
So if he only gets one in, that's him starting from the back as well. We're slowly collecting quite a number of cars now who will potentially start from the back. We've described to you about the number 14, no, not the 14, the Schnitzelarm Mercedes number 11, that's already going to have to start at the back, regardless of what time it sets in top qualifying. And it's sounding like the number 17 Mercedes AMG Team Get Speed GT3, the AMG GT3, will have to start towards the rear as well. Kevin Estre in the early part of his first flying lap in the Grello Porsche, heading through the Vidal chicane a couple of moments ago. But there are no times displayed, even if the cars got through. Well, actually, having said that, Nicky Team did set an 8:32.8, but that was, I'm guessing, after the red flag was shown, and therefore wouldn't count. Of course, if he did get across the line and the red flag was shown afterwards, does the 8:32 count? But it's certainly not up there in terms of a fast time.
I don't know that was done as you say, whether that was done in time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he wouldn't, even if he crossed the line, he may well have, the lap may well have been timed, even though the red flags were out. And there'll be big question marks as to whether you can set a fast time, in inverted commas, when the track has been entirely neutralised, or more than neutralised, red flagged for the recovery of the number 16 Cherer Sport PHX Porsche, and for Lawrence Vantor to safely make it back in a rescue unit. That's a long, long way from home, Arenberg. It's not as far as you can get, but it's a little way from any access routes. I'm impressed with how quickly the medics were on the scene there, but they will just sort of materialise here, because just as the pickup lorries do, and the Armco trailers and everything else, that they all have little hidey hole places. So Lawrence Vantor was very quickly joined by the medics to check on his well-being.
I don't think that is one of the areas where they've got a effectively emergency station part the way around.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. 27 Lamborghini of Red Bull Team Apt, with Mirko Bortolotti driving that car, finishing fourth in the qualifying session last night. Remember, 5 cars progressing to make it a full 17. as we've said, slightly odd number, but that's now down to 16 cars. And of those 16, a few of them are going to have laps either deleted or blatantly ignored, in the case for the number 11 SRO Motorsport Mercedes.
I actually think they're going to have to restart this from ground zero, effectively.
Yeah.
And reset this as if this first part didn't happen. Which means, well, I don't know what that means for anybody who's had laps deleted. Maybe they'll just have to throw that out. But I think that also is manna from heaven for Falcon number 33 car. There's as you can imagine, there's a frantic bit of reading of the regulations to decide what is allowed and what isn't allowed in terms of spare cars. If that car can be repaired, and bear in mind they've got until late morning on Saturday in terms of running it in, so you would be able to get some practice in. I mean, there are Porsche teams that are based very close to round here.
True.
Including none other than Manthey, who I'm sure could help out with anything that needed doing, and would be asked so to do, I'm sure, by Porsche. But if not, are you allowed a new chassis?
I mean, this is not the first instance where a car has been crashed in top qualifying, and I'm sure it's not the first where it then cannot be repaired. So there's always force majeure to say we haven't got a car to race with anymore. Can we pick another one that's near enough identical? And there's an opportunity then for warm-up at midday tomorrow.
Correct.
So they've got all the morning to get prepared for a 40-minute warm-up session. So we'll wait to see.
Okay, we're just hearing now that... So what is going to happen here is they're going to red flag and effectively checker flag this session for the time being, because we need to re-prep the circuit for the touring car masters on the Grand Prix track. So top qualifying, it will be abandoned at this point, and we'll adjourn until 4 o'clock this afternoon, and then presumably it'll be reset. I'll wait to hear from that.
I think that's a decision that Walter Hornung and the rest of his team will have to make.
I think that's very pragmatic to what they've done now, because you've got people sitting in their cars ready to go out.
Yeah.
And
they can race on the Grand Prix circuit, no problem.
Correct.
Whilst Arenberg is repaired.
So you're not delaying anything by doing that. I think that's a really sensible use of the circuit.
But will it be 2 laps of qualifying or just down to the 1 lap? This session was due to take basically an hour. So the first car waved off at 1:30 and we should have been done by 2:30. So you've got to try and find 60 minutes somewhere within the remaining time. You can't compromise the 90 minutes that is qualifying 3 for all the other runners, surely. The other SP9 cars as well.
No, but you have got a big gap. No, you haven't, actually. You've got an hour and a half's gap between... no, you haven't. You've only got a 30-minute gap between the end of the Tourenwagen Legend race. So it's the Cup and Tourenwagen Touring Car Trophy, and then we'll have top qualifying. Then I presume we'll have the Touring Car Legends race, and then the hour's worth of hour and a half's worth of qualifying and delay the drift show, possibly.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
So push that later on into the evening.
Yeah.
Last resort will be to trim that 90-minute session to say an hour, and that gives you a little bit more wiggle room. But I don't think that's fair on the other runners.
I don't think they'll do that.
No.
So it suggests to me that they will try and squeeze it in and push everything back half an hour or so. So I'm afraid to say that that is going to be that as far as our pole shootout for now. And hearing from race control, as we reported to you, that the resumption of the pole shootout, top qualifying as it is termed here, will not start before 4 p.m. local time. That doesn't mean it'll start spot on 4 o'clock. We haven't had that, but it will certainly not be before. And the suggestion from the information that gives to me is that will very much depend on the work that's going on at the top of Arenberg at the moment in terms of replacing the arm core and ensuring the safety of that debris and catch fencing and where they are going into the ground. Absolutely did its job. But, I mean, talk about flattening 2 layers of metal barrier. It was so flat that it was almost perfectly a seat for Laurens Vanthoor when he got out of the car. The good news is Laurens is fine. The bad news is the SRO Sport number 16 PHX Porsche SP9 Pro GT3R Type 992 is, I'm afraid, looking in less than pristine order.
Kevin Estra going into the SRO Sport PHX garage to check with mechanics I'm sure that he knows pretty well on Laurens Vanthoor's welfare, because they are teammates so often.
And he was also asking what happened with the car. Do you know what happened with the car?
Yep. Yep.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. Safety first is always the situation. So the teams now debriefing, and so coming up next will be, as the timetable dictates, the touring car cup and cup car trophy races. It's their second of 2 30-minute races this weekend, and that is due up at 3:15 local time. So in just around about an hour's time, but that allows the work to continue on the Nürburgring Nordschleife at Arenberg to ensure that we can go on time. Top qualifying not restarting before 4 o'clock local time.
With now indication that they are considering shortening qualifying 3, just so that they can prize it into the rest of the schedule, which will be a disappointment for others that had banked on trying to improve their position within class, but it's kind of a necessity.
Yeah. One installation lap and one timed lap on the Nordschleife for top qualifying, restarting somewhere near 4 o'clock this afternoon, so that's in just under 2 hours. And the following third qualifying, following from Q3, which is everybody else's last chance to qualify, will be shortened, but at the moment we haven't got any further detail on how much that will be shortened by. So disappointment for Johnny Palmer and me, John Hindorf, that we didn't get to see the shootout we were hoping for. The good news is that we will still get a shootout later on in the afternoon. Don't go too far away, because we will be bringing you more action as we have it. But reconvening at 4 o'clock this afternoon, when we'll have a single top qualifying lap shootout. So a proper pole shootout for presumably the remaining 16 of the 17 cars. By then we should have some more news on that SRO Sport PHX number 16 and how bad the damage is. That car already on its way back on a flatbed, and also what the options are then for that team who qualified into top qualifying last night so spectacularly and with such drama yesterday evening. Well, drama of a different type for them this afternoon. With apologies that we can't bring you any more, but you'll understand why safety has to be the absolute first concern. Qualifying 3 will almost certainly then have to be shortened. We'll give you all the details when we come back. It's the Glickenhaus Trophy for pole position for the 53rd running of the ADAC. 24 hours, and we'll have more later on in the sunshine from the Eifel Mountains. For Johnny Palmer, I'm John Hindhaugh. Bye-bye for now.
Motorsport, 33, die Commencement, der ist nicht richtig komplett gekommen. Hier, der Mustang,